We are living in a completely bizarre paradox right now when it comes to learning new things, especially languages. Like, you have never had more access to free English lessons, yet the dropout rate for self-taught learners is just, well, it's massive.
Oh, it's huge. It really is the paradox of choice, right? You have all the raw materials to become fluent, but absolutely zero architecture to put them together.
Exactly. I mean, if you want to learn, the internet will gladly hand you 10,000 apps,
Mhm.
a million YouTube videos, endless grammar books, podcasts. But instead of handing you a blueprint, it just dumps this massive, chaotic pile of linguistic bricks right in the middle of your lawn.
And you're just left staring at this mountain of information, totally overwhelmed, like you have no idea where the front door is even supposed to go.
Yeah. And that is exactly why so many people, they download an app, they keep a streak alive for like a week, and then they just quietly delete it.
Right, because the cognitive load is just too high without a plan.
So for this deep dive, we are taking away that overwhelm. We're handing you the actual blueprint. We're going to build a comprehensive step-by-step masterclass on how to teach yourself English.
Using free resources, smart strategies, and, let's be honest, a bit of actual discipline.
Definitely need the discipline part. And to build this roadmap, we're pulling insights from some fantastic language educators.
Yeah.
We've got transcripts from Oknur Akar and the Doka channel.
We're also combining those with really expensive grammar frameworks from places like Novakid and Akandil, plus curated podcast directories from top talent.
And we are grounding all of it in the Oxford 3000 vocabulary list. So the mission here is to cut through the noise. We want to deconstruct how English actually works at a mechanical level.
How you can trick your brain into absorbing it.
Right. And most importantly, how to start speaking it without that paralyzing fear of sounding foolish. Because that fear is what stops almost everyone.
It really is. So before you even think about, downloading another app or buying a stack of flashcards, you have to establish your objective.
Which seems obvious, but people skip it.
So they skip it entirely. But going through the strategy outlined by the Dilboy channel, it becomes incredibly clear that why you are learning dictates exactly how you should learn.
Give me an example of that.
Okay, well, let's say you're a software engineer, right? And you're aiming to work for a multinational tech company. Your daily study routine needs to be packed with technical vocabulary, industry-specific jargon, meeting etiquette.
That makes sense. It's a very tailored approach.
Exactly. And that tailored approach saves you hundreds of hours. Conversely, if your goal is just to travel through Europe for a summer, you don't need that.
Oh, right. You just need the most frequently used daily words. Like, you need to know how to book a hotel or dispute a bill or ask for directions.
Spot on. Spending your limited cognitive energy memorizing advanced academic phrases or, I don't know, complex idioms about the weather.
We people love to teach for some reason.
Right. But if your goal is just to order a coffee in London, learning 10 idioms about rain is just burning your own time and motivation. Your learning strategy absolutely has to match your specific reality.
Okay, so once that specific goal is locked in, you have to understand the core machinery of the language itself. And this is where the Novakid and Agindal grammar guides are just so illuminating.
They really break it down to the studs.
They do. They point to the absolute golden rule of English, which is basically the DNA of the language. SVO. Subject, verb, object.
SVO. It is the holy grail of English syntax.
It really is. I actually like to think of English sentence structure as like a traditional old school train.
Oh, I like that. Walk me through the train.
Okay, so the subject, the entity actually doing the action, that's the heavy engine at the front.
Yeah.
The verb is the coal car, right? It's providing the action to power the engine.
Okay. Engine, coal car.
And then the object is the passenger car trailing behind, receiving that action. Engine, coal, passenger. I drink coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And here is the kicker. That English train only runs in that exact order.
It is incredibly inflexible. That's the defining characteristic of English syntax.
It's super strict. And depending on what your native language is, this SVO rule can feel like a straitjacket.
Oh, absolutely. Like, look at Turkish, for example.
Yeah, exactly. In Turkish, you can completely scramble the word order to emphasize different parts of your thought. You can say the equivalent of, I went to school yesterday, or when I yesterday to school, or yesterday to school when I.
And structurally, it still makes perfect sense to a native speaker. The grammar allows for that beautiful flexibility.
But English does not play that game at all. If you derail that SCO train, the sentence completely crashes and nobody understands what you're saying.
It's true, but, while it feels really restrictive initially, that rigidity is actually a massive advantage for you as a learner.
Wait, how is it an advantage to be trapped in one structure?
Because it operates as a safety harness. Because English is so unforgiving about subject, verb, object, it makes it entirely predictable.
Oh, I see. You don't have to guess.
Exactly. You don't have to guess where the verb belongs depending on the emotional weight of the sentence. It is always right there in the middle.
The coal car is always behind the engine.
Always. And once you master that basic engine coal passenger pattern, you basically possess the master key to the language. You can then start linking those simple trains together to form complex thoughts.
Right, and the sources actually refer to this linking process using an acronym AMBOIS.
Yes, the coordinating conjunctions. For, and, nor, but, or yet so.
Fanboys. So you just take one SVO train, you add a but or an and you just hook it up to another SVO train, like, I drink coffee, but she drinks tea.
And just like that, you are instantly creating compound sentences using highly predictable, repeatable mechanics.
It's like you're scaling up your communication without actually changing the foundational rules at all. The architecture stays identical whether you're speaking like a toddler or delivering a thesis defense.
It's exactly the same track. But, a perfectly engineered train track doesn't mean much if the cargo cars are completely empty.
Right. You need something to haul. Which brings us to vocabulary.
Yes, the cargo.
And going through these materials, especially the insights from educator Ilsknur Akar, it's clear that trying to memorize random dictionary words is a massive trap.
It's probably the biggest mistake beginners make.
Totally. Like downloading a PDF of 100 random English words and just staring at it. That is the fastest way to ensure you forget absolutely everything by Tuesday.
Because the brain doesn't store information in alphabetical order. It stores it in associative networks.
Right. So learning vocabulary in a vacuum strips away the context your brain actually needs to build a memory hook.
So what do the sources recommend instead?
Well, they suggest utilizing spaced repetition software, stuff like Anki or Quizlet, but with a really crucial caveat. You have to focus exclusively on themed vocabulary.
Okay, themed vocabulary. Like what?
Like you create a deck of cards solely about global warming or entirely focused on your specific hobby, like photography.
I see. So when you use a spaced repetition app, you aren't just looking at digital flashcards. You're actually hacking the brain's forgetting curve.
Exactly. The algorithm waits until the exact millisecond your brain is about to dump that new word from your short-term memory, and it forces you to recall it.
And that calculated struggle to remember is what builds a permanent neural pathway.
But, and this is a big but, actually applying those words into sentences is where people freeze up. Like if I try to learn a new grammar rule and 10 new themed words at the exact same time, my brain just shuts down.
Yeah, that phenomenon is known as cognitive overload. Your working memory, basically your brain's RAM, it can only handle so many new variables at once.
So how do we bypass that?
This brings us to a really brilliant, highly effective method highlighted in the Dilgwa source. They call it the substitution technique.
The substitution technique.
Yeah, and it directly addresses that cognitive bottleneck. The premise is super simple. You keep the grammatical structure completely constant, but you swap out the vocabulary cargo.
Okay, so if I'm understanding the mechanics of that correctly, it looks something like, okay, I take a basic SVO sentence I already know is perfectly correct. Let's say she likes drinking coffee in the morning.
Perfect. You lock that structure into place.
I lock it in. Then I just substitute the verb and the object to say, she likes watching a movie in the evening. Or I swap the subject to, he likes playing football with his friend.
Exactly. You are isolating one variable at a time.
It's so simple, but it makes so much sense.
That isolation is the brilliance of the technique. You are anchoring new, unfamiliar vocabulary to a structural foundation that you already deeply trust.
Right. It bypasses the cognitive overload because I'm not agonizing over the syntax anymore. I know the syntax is right.
Exactly. And to maximize this technique, the sources strongly recommend pulling your substitution words from curated lists of high-frequency vocabulary.
Like the Oxford 3000.
Yes, specifically the Oxford 3000. These are the 3,000 most commonly utilized words across the entire English language.
So by focusing your cognitive energy there, you guarantee you aren't wasting time memorizing words you might only encounter, like once a decade in a Victorian novel.
Exactly. But while you are drilling those high-frequency words, there is a really stark warning in the materials regarding spelling and pronunciation.
Oh, right. The sources mention a proverb. It roughly translates to, a tree bends when it is young.
Such a great visual.
It is. Because
Oh.
if you learn a word with the wrong pronunciation in your first month of study, unlearning that calcified bad habit a year later is brutally difficult.
It really is. The auditory processing center in your brain physically maps the sounds you practice. If you map it wrong, you essentially have to tear down that neural pathway and rebuild it from scratch.
Which is exhausting.
It is vastly more efficient to learn the correct pronunciation initially, even if it requires slowing your overall progress down for a bit.
But, pronouncing a word perfectly in the safety of your own living room doesn't mean you're going to recognize it out in the wild.
Oh, definitely not.
Which brings us to arguably the hardest phase of the journey. Actually tuning your ear to native speakers. The immersion phase. And I have a confession to make here.
Uh-oh. Let's hear it.
Whenever I try to immerse myself in a language, I just put on a foreign podcast while I'm doing the dishes or driving, and I convince myself I am absorbing the language by osmosis.
You and everyone else. But the top talent source points out a pretty fascinating reality check about that. Passive listening is practically useless for beginners.
It hurt my feelings to read that, I'm not going to lie.
The illusion of osmosis is such a comfortable trap. Think about it. When you listen to a podcast in your native language, you can zone out for 30 seconds to focus on traffic, right?
Yeah, all the time.
Then you tune back in and your brain instantly fills in the missing gaps. You catch the context immediately because your brain is a predictive engine in your native tongue.
Right, it knows what's probably going to come next.
Exactly. But in a foreign language, that predictive engine does not exist yet. If you lose focus for even a single second, the context completely vanishes.
Yeah, you just hear a wall of noise. Just sounds bleeding into each other.
So for beginners, active, dedicated listening is non-negotiable. You cannot multitask. You have to sit down, remove distractions, and actively parse the sounds.
Okay, I have to push back on this a bit, though. Native speakers talk incredibly fast, and they compress all their words, like going to becomes gonna.
True.
So even if I'm sitting in a quiet room, actively listening with all my might and staring at a blank wall, A native speed podcast is going to fly right over my head.
Yeah.
My brain just can't slice that wave of sound into distinct words.
Which is exactly why the sources suggest manually slowing the podcast down using the app's speed features.
Like dropping it to 0.75x or even half
Right,
speed.
exactly.
But wait, if I train my brain to understand English at half speed, aren't I just going to completely panic when a real person speaks to me at normal speed in a coffee shop? How does deliberately practicing artificially slow English prepare me for the real world?
It sounds totally counterintuitive, I know, but the cognitive science of sound parsing supports this progression. At normal speed, a beginner's auditory cortex literally cannot hear the acoustic boundaries between words.
Because they just bleed together.
They bleed together completely. By slowing the audio down, even if it sounds slightly distorted or weird, you give your brain the processing time it actually needs to recognize where one word ends and the next one begins.
So you're basically building an acoustic map.
Precisely. And as your comprehension of those boundaries improves, you just incrementally dial the speed back up to normal. You have to walk before you can run.
That makes a lot of sense. You're training the ear to recognize the individual breaths before you ask it to identify the whole house.
Exactly. And the sources actually provide a really nicely curated word map of what you should be listening to at every level so you can build that acoustic map properly.
Right. So if you're a beginner sitting around that A1 or A2 level, the recommendation is to start with programs like Voice of America, Learning English, or Lovely English Stories.
And crucially, those combine reading the text with the audio.
Yes, which is huge. Then, as you graduate to the intermediate B1 or B2 levels, your brain can handle a bit more complexity. That is when you transition to resources like the American Podcast, which is specifically praised for its really clear pronunciation.
Or the BBC 6-Minute English. That BBC format is highly effective because it's topical and it's short.
Right, 6 minutes.
Yeah, which allows you to maintain that intense, active listening without suffering cognitive fatigue. You can actually focus for 6 minutes.
And finally, when you hit that advanced C1 or C2 level, the training wheels come off. That's when you dive into native level media, TED Talks, standard BBC News, and classic literature through platforms like Project Gutenberg.
The progression is vital. You don't jump straight into Shakespeare, you follow the steps.
But, consuming the language, the reading and the listening, that is really only half the battle.
It's the comfortable passive half.
Exactly. True language acquisition requires actually producing it. You have to step out of your comfort zone and speak and write. This is the output phase.
Yeah, and output is the ultimate hurdle because it requires you to synthesize absolutely everything simultaneously. The grammar, the vocabulary, and the pronunciation.
It's a lot of spinning plates.
It really is. So the Dilgwa source offers this fantastic structural approach to prevent you from just freezing up weekly themes.
Weekly themes.
Yeah. You don't just sit down at a blank page and say, I am going to practice writing today. That prompt is way too broad. Instead, you organize your output. Like this week, the theme is exclusively hobbies. Next week, the theme is future plans.
Oh, I see the logic there. By locking into hobbies for 7 solid days, you severely limit the vocabulary pool you need to draw from.
Exactly. You aren't overwhelmed trying to remember words for politics or food. You're just focusing on the vocabulary of hobbies.
So you write short compositions, you study that specific deck in your spaced repetition app, and most importantly, you record video diaries of yourself speaking about those hobbies.
Video diaries are amazing.
They are such a brutal but honest metric for progress. Like you could look back 3 months later and visually see how much smoother your SVO train is running.
They force you to confront your fluency gaps in real time. But a really common issue for self-taught learners is the feedback loop. Like if you're writing compositions about your hobbies, How do you know if you're making massive structural mistakes?
Right, because you don't have a teacher to hand the assignment to.
Exactly.
Well, this is where Alkner Akar highlights a tip that fundamentally changes the landscape of self-teaching using artificial intelligence, specifically large language models like ChatGPT functioning as your personalized 24/7 language partner.
It's revolutionary.
It really is. You
Yeah.
could literally paste your daily diary entry into the prompt and just ask it to correct your grammar. Or you can flip the dynamic. You can prompt the AI saying, write a short, simple B1 level text about global warming.
And then you read it, study the vocabulary, analyze how it links the SVO trains together.
Exactly. And then you put the AI text away and attempt to rewrite those core ideas yourself.
The application of AI here operates like a bespoke textbook generated completely on demand. But honestly, the real magic isn't even the text generation, it's the psychology.
The psychology, what do you mean?
Well, in linguistics, there's this concept called the affective filter hypothesis.
Affective filters.
Yeah, it essentially states that negative emotions like anxiety, fear, embarrassment, they act as a literal mental block, preventing language acquisition.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so when you try to speak to a native speaker or even a human teacher, the fear of judgment spikes. You're terrified of sounding foolish.
Oh, absolutely. It frees up completely.
Yeah.
But with AI, that affective filter completely drops
Mm.
because the AI does not judge you.
Exactly. It doesn't sigh impatiently. You can make the exact same prepositional mistake 50 times in a row, and it will calmly correct you 50 times.
It creates a psychologically safe environment to fail.
Mm-hmm.
And you absolutely must fail in order to acquire a language.
You have to. And if you don't want to type into an AI, the sources suggest another brilliant way to lower the stakes and remove that social anxiety.
Which is
Simply narrate your daily actions out loud to yourself.
just talking to yourself around the house.
Exactly. Like as you're making breakfast, you literally say out loud, right now I am pouring the coffee. I am going to make eggs.
That's great. You're forcing your brain to retrieve vocabulary on the fly in a totally zero pressure environment. It trains your mouth to physically produce the sounds without an audience evaluating you.
Yep. So we have our weekly themes, we are narrating our chaotic mornings, and we're using AI to correct our diaries.
Okay, so now how do we take our output from simply being grammatically correct to actually sounding natural to a native speaker? I want to pull a final pro tip from the Akundal grammar notes that elevates your spoken English instantly.
Oh, the politeness tweak.
Yes. When beginners need to ask for a favor, they almost universally default to can you? Like, can you open the door?
Which structurally, the SVO train is totally fine.
It's fine, but if you want to demonstrate cultural fluency, you have to move to formal structures.
You utilize the would you mind framework.
Exactly. So instead of the demanding, can you open the door,
Mhm.
you pivot to, would you mind opening the door? Or instead of, can I sit here, you ask, would you mind if I sat here?
It's a very subtle mechanical tweak, but it signals to the listener that you understand the social nuances of English. It shows politeness.
You're moving from functional survival, like just getting the door open, to actual cultural fluency.
It proves you've moved beyond just linking the SVO trains together, and you're now actually considering the experience of the passengers.
I love that, the passenger experience. Okay, let's take a breath and recap this entire blueprint for you because we have covered a massive amount of ground today, but every single step is highly actionable.
Right. So, step 1. You must define your specific goal to ensure you are downloading the right vocabulary into your brain.
Step 2. Respect the strict subject-verb-object rigidity of English. Use that predictability to your advantage.
Step 3. Ditch the random dictionary lists. Learn vocabulary in curated themes using spaced repetition and the substitution method to avoid that cognitive overload.
Step 4. Engage in dedicated active listening. Put the phone away. Slow those level-appropriate podcasts down to 0.75x speed until your auditory cortex can actually process the boundaries between the words.
And finally, step 5. Produce output. Organize your speaking practice into weekly themes, narrate your daily life out loud to lower your affective filter, and leverage AI as your judgment-free correction partner.
You are no longer staring at a random pile of bricks on your lawn. You have the blueprint.
You really do.
But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a broader concept to ponder. Something that sits right at the intersection of everything we've unpacked today regarding technology and learning.
It really raises a profound question about the future of education itself.
It does. Think about it.
Yeah.
We now possess technology that can instantly generate leveled, themed reading materials tailored exactly to your personal hobbies.
We have AI that corrects grammar in real time with infinite patience. It acts as a flawless spoken word conversation partner that never judges your accent.
Right. So if you have all that capability sitting right in your pocket, completely for free, is the traditional standardized classroom model of language learning destined to become obsolete?
It's a huge question. If you can converse with a personalized AI tutor that adapts to your exact cognitive bottlenecks, why would you sit in a room with 30 other adults moving at a generalized, compromised pace?
Exactly. And taking that technological leap one step further, as instant real-time audio translation continues to improve exponentially, the very definition of what it means to learn a language might fundamentally shift in the next decade.
Oh, for sure. If an earpiece can perfectly translate Turkish to English and back again in milliseconds, capturing all those cultural nuances of would you mind?
The underlying motivation to spend hundreds of hours mastering the SVO train mechanics might completely vanish.
It is a very real philosophical shift for you to consider as you embark on this journey.
The tools are rapidly evolving, and the landscape might look entirely different in 10 years. But for today, the blueprint is yours to execute. You understand the SVO engine, you know how to load the vocabulary cargo, and you have the psychological tools to build the tracks.
The front door is drawn on the plans.
Now you just have to start building.